Happy Wednesday. BobbyFi with my man Eric Tabor. We're going to be talking through today's Wednesday MLB main slate. Did want to say we've added a bunch of new stuff for NFL. We'll have that out to you, but we are also offering some great packages, which I'll get out to you guys probably tomorrow. We're just finalizing a few things. And for those of you who aren't members, and I think that it's a pretty appealing time to join if you had to. Some of our packages I know that we're actually selling less that include SaberSim we're actually selling for less than SaberSim charges themselves for a few of them. So we are really out there to make a push, and we've got also a lot of cool new things that we're going to be adding throughout the season. So with that said, let's jump into baseball for tonight. A good night last night. We'll see how the day goes. Ready to get for me. I know the other people didn't have a great one last night, but ready to get into it. It's going to be a small slate, so the name of the game is going to be trying to get a little bit different, which we talked about on this morning's slate. And Sheets, any overall thoughts before we jump into game by game?
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to be going to the Yankee game tonight. That's
nice.
The thing, which part of it means that I'm not going to be around for live.
Yep.
Probably maybe I'll poke my head in. I'm not sure from where I am. But as all Spencer Strider slates go, it provides an interesting. It's kind of like it's a co-dynamic. In other words, you if you play Strider, you don't get to play the high-priced hitters, and always Strider's team is the high-priced hitters.
Right.
so you're never going to be able to play Strider and the Braves together. Not saying not. Never be able to, but it becomes difficult. And it becomes a question of whether you want to play Strider. Overall, I don't know how appealing the low price guys are. Actually, I do have a kind of an opinion, and we'll get to them. But listen, you have Jordan Lyles on the slate, which people like to go after. You have a big battle, man. Scherzer Verlander. I mean, dude, I don't know if Texas sells out, but that better for that game. You know what I mean? Like if you can't sell out a Houston versus Texas with Scherzer versus Verlander, then we have collective bargaining agreement.
Both teams literally in the hunt for a playoff spot in the same division. Both can still win the division. It's all the things.
Yeah, I don't expect either of these guys to get pulled out of the game anytime soon. No. We'll get to that actually. So you want to just go game by game? Let me start. I'll share my screen. And
let's share your screen. We'll go game by game
and then we will see what up, so to speak. All right. So here is the weather report for Yankees Detroit. It is effing hot out. that is I mean I walk to work like pretty much every day except for today. It's like so hot. I don't know how that impacts whatever, but it is hot there. You have Schmidt against Manning, and I have a little bit of interest in the pitchers. given what I just said, it's a short slate, and if you want to pay, for some expensive hitters in Atlanta, for example, you are going to have to make some concessions. And listen, you do get a pitcher against Detroit at 7,100. That's something. And Manning, he every once in a while he'll throw up a decent game, and the Yankees every once in a while will get owned by some pitchers. So I actually do have a little bit of interest in both pitchers in this game, despite the despite the hot weather.
Yeah, I have a little bit of interest in both pitchers as well. It's a little, you're going to get like no ownership on Manning, and it wasn't all that long ago, like yesterday, not really yesterday, but like we can play pitchers against this Yankee team. That's not something that we should be sitting here like scared of. So I don't mind the idea of taking some Manning. I don't mind the idea of some Schmidt. There are other ways. It's really going to depend on how you build. But for what it's worth, Manning just put up 19 against these guys the last time he faced them. If you did that again, you'd be very happy with it.
That would be just fine.
Yeah, if you want to get the big bats in. And Schmidt facing the Tigers is going to be really popular. And I don't know that he's so much better of a play than Manning that he should be 5 times his own, which is what's going to happen. So they're both in play for me. Going to have to evaluate the rest of the games before I go through my full list. All right, New York and Washington. Let me just jump into this one really quick, just because I do think that this is the way you get those guys in. I mean, you have really cheap options for the Mets, regardless of who ends up playing. You're going to have some cheap options, and you're going to have really cheap options possibly for the Nationals, at least in the form of maybe a Lou or Vargas, depending on who they play today. They didn't play Abrams yesterday, so I'm assuming he'll be back in. Jacob Young led off yesterday. He's projected to bat ninth. Maybe they let him bat near the top. I don't know what they're going to do, actually. So both these teams I have a lot of interest in, and they also make, if you do want to double spend up a pitcher, they make it very doable. And I have zero interest in the pitching, but very, very high on both these offenses. 93 degrees in Washington, a little bit of wind blowing out. Sounds good to me. I'm in on that one.
Yeah, I kind of want to do the opposite as well. You got the Mets coming off 100 runs yesterday, and you got a pitcher against them at 5,900. Considering what you just said, by the way, that Schmidt's going to be kind of popular. I was going to actually even go back and see if I might want to play some Detroit, but how about Manning and Adon? Like, if you really want to just
go crazy with it.
Yeah, it's 6 games, and Adon. Listen, he's
got stuff.
He puts up games. Yeah. He's got a 20. He's got a 23. He's got games. So I don't know. I definitely agree with the Mets. Listen, when I ran my first build, the Mets, I had to beg them to not let me play them. Right. But maybe everybody will get to that. So I don't know. 6-game slate. You have to have a little bit of vision. So I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind playing some Adon.
Yeah, and I think that it's the Mets are going to be really popular tonight because everybody's going to see what I saw. So I'm pointing out the Mets, but I did want to say the Washington side will be significantly lower owned, and that is an extremely viable route for those who want to go that route. So I my first build was Mets before I saw any ownership, before I saw anything. But I am probably going to be switching over to a little bit more of Washington. I just would like to know who's in the lineup before I end up making that decision, which we should know when I go live at 6 Eastern. So I have Adon on my list. I don't feel thrilled about it, but I do have him on my list. All right. St. Louis and Atlanta. Go ahead, Sheets. Why don't you start this one off?
So Strider's a good play. He strikes out a lot of guys. St. Louis can strike out. So, yeah, he's a good play. Atlanta, they hit the ball really far. And I say that almost only half facetiously. Atlanta, I don't know if there's a stat on this, but I mean, I would say I would have to, at least anecdotally, that a good amount of their runs come from home runs relative to other teams. I guess it's a kind of a weird way of saying they hit a lot of home runs, but I just noticed even when they lose, I mean, it's like 4 solo home runs and then they lose 10-6. You know what I mean? Like that, right. That happens. But.
And the stolen base upside for their team is also pretty high.
Well, Acuna basically just scores 30 every game, so I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get the Atlanta guys in hitting wise, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Acuna, I guess you consider him cheap now at 6,800. But all these other guys are fine. Even Ozuna at 4,900, Harris at 4,500, and Rosario at 4K, for example. I think that's legitimately cheap now. Considering how many runs this team piles up. I like Atlanta. I like Strider. I'm not good enough to play them both together. But I'm sure you could. I mean, let's want to have some fun. How about we?
Let's just see what it looks like, and we'll start with Acuna. You don't even need to put the Adon in, just to see what we got. I'm curious, but let's see.
Well, I mean, if you did this, you'd get 3,500 a man. Strider with Adon.
Yeah, I think a more reasonable. Yeah, that's fine. And Adon is. Don't get me wrong. I have him on my list too, but I don't think it's I was going to see if there's a reasonable play.
Not to skip ahead too much, but I'm going to probably want to have
Gibson. Yeah,
I don't think you can get this.
You can get it. You just have to then. Well, you wouldn't want Harris, obviously, batting ninth in a 3-man. But I think you could get a part of the Atlanta stack. You can get a 3-man Atlanta. It is interesting because Murphy's down to 4.8. There's a way to do it if you just want to play. You just have to it's really hard to play, I guess, two of Acuna, Albies, Riley, and Olsen.
Right.
It's really hard to play two of those guys if you play Strider.
Listen, I don't think you need to play Strider. He's gonna get, listen, if he gets 40, then you got a problem. But if he gets 25, which is more like, 25 and 30 is more likely what he's gonna get.
Yep.
You could survive that. I mean, you got Verlander, you could score, you got Scherzer who can score. I mean, you got pitchers that can put up numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing I would say about the Strider thing is just keep in mind they are not going to let this guy go out there and throw 110 pitches unless something crazy is happening. They don't have anything to play for. They are going to keep them right in their tight range of their 90 to 100 pitches, and that does limit some of the upside.
Well, so in a weird way, I mean, like Atlanta with the cheapo pitchers kind of correlates okay, because if Atlanta does put up like a 10 spot in like the first 4 or 5 innings, then then Strider's not going to be in there for 110 pitches to bury you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, okay, that's interesting.
So that's something to consider just going on. I mean, Atlanta's won they're going to win the National League pretty handily. Well, they're up by 4 on the Dodgers, but they've got everything else won. They're up by 20 million games in their division. What kind of threw me off about this game a little bit, and I know it's still a high run total, but Atlanta with this 85 degrees at home with a little wind blowing out, like against Dakota Hudson and St. Louis's bullpen, which has been really bad, like of late, like I'm sort of surprised that the run total is not like 7. And I'm actually thinking that, like, I think Vegas is giving a tiny bit of respect to Dakota Hudson somehow. I don't really know, exactly. He's been good lately, I guess. He had one bad outing. It's interesting just I don't want to play Dakota Hudson. Don't get me wrong. I did throw a couple of Mikolas lineups in there last night though,
did you?
A lottery ones. Maybe you could argue for Dakota Hudson in the lottery. If you're spending down, I don't really know what you're using the money on except for to play Atlanta. So it's a little bit tricky. But yeah, I think that Strider was I was able to get to a build that I really liked, but it's going to be chalky. I have Strider and Scherzer together with the Mets and White Sox in my very first build of tonight. So you absolutely can play Strider and Scherzer together. It's totally doable, and you can still get one of the better stacks in the Mets or one of the stacks that looks like the better stacks pretty easily. So if you play the White Sox also, because they are super cheap. Speaking of which, why don't you jump into that game, Sheets?
Yeah. So, listen, I don't know what the Royals record is, but because I play them a lot, I watch them a lot. One thing about the Royals, man, they're pesky in those late innings, man. You can never put them away. They have like more walk off wins than I would think that a team that's supposed to be really bad has. They're very annoying sometimes.
They're the worst team in baseball.
What's that?
Along with the A's, they're the worst team in baseball.
I guess I suppose they are, But so you have one of those Royals games, where you have what's his name, Lyles. People always go after Lyles, and it makes sense. I usually like to play White Sox against lefties, and in a weird way, I like to play Lyles against right-handed hitting teams. So I guess I'm going to have to ask you. I mean, is Lyles the worst play I would have ever made if I play them? That's one rhetorical question. It's not going to be rhetorical. He's going to answer that in a second. And then on the other side, you have Toussaint, who, listen, I played him a lot. And here's the deal with this season. This season with the Atlanta, always like having an 8-run total. You know what I mean? Like everybody's playing these guys, so we're all forced to kind of watch the outings of these guys like all the time, And whenever I watch Toussaint play, I'm like, can you just get me one more inning and then get him out? You know what I mean? Like sometimes like when you have a pitcher and you're like rooting for points, you're rooting for him to come back the next inning. So because you need more points with guys like Toussaint and you only need like 15 or something like that. Like after the 4th inning, I don't even want the win anymore. I just want him out before he gives up like a whole bunch of stuff. But he's gonna be in play, and as long as Atlanta's on the schedule, and as long as other teams that can hit are on the schedule, guys like this at 6K are just always going to be in play. So as usual, I probably like all four sides of this nonsense. Like a little bit of Lyles and Toussaint with the Atlanta stuff. And if I want to spend on the pitching, I think both of these teams are pretty good as far as cheap hitting.
Yeah, I agree. Every facet of this game makes some sense. It's interesting this slate if you don't want to play Strider, like what people are going to do, because it's just interesting. I like the White Sox. I don't usually like the White Sox. I do like trying to pick on Lyles, and maybe because he just came off his best outing in like years, maybe that keeps the ownership down. I think it'll be like mediumly high ownership because they're so cheap and people see Lyles and they get excited. But what about the Royals? I just want to take a quick look and see where Goldie has them early in the day. Okay, let's see. Yeah, they're medium. I mean, low ownership for the size of the slate for sure, but not crazy low ownership. So yeah, I agree that all sides are definitely in play here, and still deciding what I want to do, because I do think that, like, if you're going to talk about playing a Don, we should. I mean, Jordan Lyles has pitched 8 innings in 3 out of his last 5 starts. How many pitchers in baseball have even done that this whole season? I don't know if anybody else has done that the whole season. The guy has a leash, and he's facing a really bad offense. I think there's definitely an argument to be made that Lyles is a significantly better play than the other cheap guys. He will be a little bit more on.
And as far as the White Sox guys, I mean, it depends who gets in, but like obviously, if Sheets somehow gets a start at 2,300, I mean that's.
Yeah, but you also got Vaughn is 3,100 who will play. I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, as will
Eloy, Tim Anderson,
and well, I know you don't like Benintendi, but he's only 3,300.
Yeah, he's the one I tend to avoid. But I would probably play him I'd play him in a 5-man or a 4-man or something. I don't think I'd want to play him in a 3.
And this guy, he's probably not going to get in today, but the leader of the free world last night, I did okay in like the 222 because of this guy. I had the Corey Lee with the 3-run homer at minimum cost, but nobody played him. So
yeah, I think it's his first career home run.
Yep.
So Corey Lee he'll probably be in the lineup again. Maybe they'll move up. You never know.
I'll probably play.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in the lineup, like he's 2,300. Why not? All right, then we get into another. So I've got a couple of takes in the last game, but this game is really straightforward. You have 2 good teams facing 2 really, really good pitchers. If I had to side with anything, I'm definitely siding with Scherzer. I prefer Scherzer over Verlander here, but I have no issue if you wanted to go Verlander. My issue is that I don't think I can play them, and just even with the worried about the pitch and the extension and everything, I guess you could take a gamble like on FanDuel and just play Scherzer over Strider. It does feel like for me, when I want to play these guys, if I'm going to play them, I feel like I want to put those in my lineups with Strider. I don't necessarily want to bet on them outscoring Strider like crazy. I want to go for max ceiling. And as I mentioned, you can definitely afford the White Sox and Mets. I do think that's going to be a fairly popular build, though. So it's just a matter of what you can tolerate. Both these guys are obviously on the list for me, but to be honest with you, I have a lot of pitching options tonight, and I don't feel like I have even close to decided what I want to do with my pitchers yet. So I guess we'll get into it after the last game.
Yeah, so I can't help myself. This is going to be my one bet today. So obviously the big pitching matchup forever, Verlander versus Scherzer. I'm going to take the over 9 plus 102. That's going to be mine. By
the way, shame on whether it's Altuve or the Astros. When a guy hits 3 home runs in a game, you don't pull him in the 7th inning.
I know.
When you've got a chance for the record, you don't do that. I know he tied the record already by hitting 4 in a row going back to yesterday, or the day before. But that's just a little weird. And this is a really, really big game for what it's worth.
So we're gonna bet on the over in the pitcher's duel, and it's 9 too. You know what I mean? So it's like even tougher to click the button than 8.5. So we're gonna do that. Okay. All right. Moving on, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I okay. So where am I at? I currently am inclined to just avoid the game. But if I had to pick any side of it, I guess I would just take Scherzer. That would be my one side if I had to pick one side of the game, is to take Scherzer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely reasonable.
All right, so we kind of alluded to this one a little bit earlier, and I kind of like this last game. I kind of like Gibson, and I also kind of like Baltimore. I have played Sandoval from time to time, but and listen, he puts up some good games, and he puts up some not so good games. I don't know. I think I'm always kind of afraid to. It's kind of weird to say, but I'm afraid to play pitchers against Baltimore for some reason, especially lefties against these righties. So I'll take a shot with Baltimore as far as a stack goes.
Okay.
And I like Gibson as well.
Yeah, I think so. My issue with Gibson is going to be the ownership today.
You think he's going to be really popular?
I think he'll be the second highest owned pitcher.
Okay.
Probably.
You think he's going to be more popular than Schmidt?
No, maybe Schmidt will be a little bit. It'll be close between the. I think Schmidt will probably be a little bit higher, to be honest with you. Actually.
Okay.
So yeah, probably go Schmidt then Gibson after Strider. I'm just trying to find a way to talk myself into playing the Angels. This is a spot where you can get leverage on a slate with a guy who does have, a fairly wide range of outcomes in Gibson. And we just saw him, he got rocked his last outing. He got rocked 3 outings before that. It was awesome in between. This is just what Kyle Gibson does. We're used to it by now. When he gets hit really hard, and he does give up a ton of home runs. So I think trying to get exposure to both sides of bats in this game are interesting. But at the same time, he does look like a very solid option against a lineup that I just think basically sucks, and they aren't overly cheap. But this is going to be the unowned game. Nobody's playing this one. It starts a million years later. We know the Angels sometimes don't get their lineups out till late. This is the spot where I think that, you can just get different with the ownership. And maybe if you do want to play those other 5-man stacks, like we talked about the Mets, who are going to be really popular, maybe you can find 3 Orioles you like to pair with them. And I think you could really take your pick. I mean, going all the way down the line, every Oriole would be heavily in play for me today. I think they're all very interesting. And I think that if you wanted to suck it up, maybe a Moustakas, Chanel, or Rengifo with O'Hope as a catcher. I think that's a pretty reasonable option as well if you're not going to play Kyle Gibson. So it's really about how you're building today. And for me, as of right now, I said my first build was Strider Scherzer with the Mets and White Sox. That's going to end up being too popular for me to stick with it for my big buy-in. I am probably going to switch over and maybe use Baltimore, Austin Hayes, Jordan Westberg, maybe James McCann as my guys to go with the Mets if I was going to keep the Strider Scherzer. But I would like to try to get some. I mean, it's weird because I like the White Sox. I'd like to get some Lyles exposure. I think Schmidt's going to be really popular, so maybe getting some Adon or Lyles, Toussaint, and who was the other one? Manning. Maybe playing those guys can be a way of getting different on a slate that's going to be really hard to get different if you're going to try to spend up. Because if you have the idea to spend down and spend up, everybody's going to try to get to the Braves. When they realize they can't, they'll play the Mets. So it's going to be Braves and Mets, I think, as far as ownership goes, pretty heavily with the Royals just behind. Is that what you have, Sheets, roughly?
Yeah. Now I want to leave this Baltimore game for a second because I have the Sandoval profile up. Not to say that I want to play him, just for an observation about if you play Baltimore, then you don't just get Sandoval. You might get the bullpen too. I'm just looking. I haven't even scrolled back, but look how many runs this team gives up. This is nuts. So first of all, I was looking at Sandoval here. So here in this last one over here, he 6 2/3. 2 runs, 2 earned runs, 23, and he left the game, and they gave up 8 runs. Right. The bullpen gave up 6 runs in the last 2 innings, pretty much. And then the game after that, the team gave up 12 runs. He gave up 5, and after 2 innings, the team got blasted. And Tampa, they gave up like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not going to score 18 points this year, right. and you give up 18 against them. And then, he pitched a gem against Mets. Thank God they let him in for 107 pitches because God knows what would have happened. They pulled him out. And then his last game, they let him in for 3 2/3, 5 runs out, and then another 4. So boy, this Angels bullpen must be just completely trash.
You know what? Yeah, I think that this is a good route, and it is. It's terrible, and it's just gotten everything's. Don't look at the overall season numbers. Look at since the All-Star break. It has been just awful. I mean, like really, really, really awful. I'm kind of talking myself into it with you a little bit with this Baltimore thing. I think that's a pretty good route to go for what is going to be, a fairly concentrated chalk on a small slate, which will be the Mets, Braves, followed by the White Sox, then the Royals.
And the Angels, they have like Trout's out, right? And Otani's out. I mean, this is this could be I should probably just bet Baltimore. Anyway.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, you're not getting a great edge on that. But I mean, it is weird. Why are they only minus 136 here? Like, that's really weird. Like, I honestly don't understand that.
Probably the Angels are a lock. That's right. My brains, I can't deal with this right now.
Well, okay, I just want to say Baltimore is they have definitely been the best team against the spread this year in the MLB. It's not even close. I mean, they have one of the best records in baseball, and how many people actually even still realize it? In the toughest division in baseball, too.
Dude, can I tell you something funny before we get out of here?
Yeah.
With this, I just went back because I was registered for all my Survivor Pool stuff. I went to that baseball Survivor Pool. They just finished that this week. Someone lasted all the way until this past week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You can only enter one in there, right?
That was the one with. I looked at the one with the strike actually. With the strike, it just ended, and that included they took Detroit. They got through a few weeks ago. It's
God, that's wild.
All right. All right. So again, I'm not going to be around for live tonight. I'll be sweating the Manning Schmidt combination, I guess, at the Tiger game.
You have to stack up that game a little bit. Maybe you do play the Tigers.
I thought of that.
It's actually
I thought of that. Or maybe I just run the showdown slate there or something.
Yeah. Can we call Miguel Cabrera home run at 2,200? Crazy still playing. All right. Well, good luck, guys. We'll see you later. We got a football show to do next. So good luck, everybody.